Hello and welcome to NPC, that's Next Portable Console. It's a show about the games we take with us. I'm going to say this week it's a low-key show about the games we take with us. My name is Brendan Bigley. I'm here with John Voorhees.
Hey Brendan, how you doing?
Oh, I'm doing fantastic, and I'm also here with Federico Fetici.
Hello. Hi.
Hi, how are you, Federico?
I'm a little bit under the weather, as they say.
Been better, yeah.
Yeah. I've been better, but I will manage, and I'm excited to talk about, portable games, portable consoles.
He's a trooper. He's here to, the show must go on, right, Federico?
Yes, always. You gotta
Bless
do
your
it.
heart.
You gotta do it for the entertainment, man. There's
Yeah.
people expecting this from us, and we gotta do it. Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right.
Yeah. So how about we just get right into it? Because we actually have a lot more. I think we have more stuff to talk about this week than we have in most episodes. Not that we have a huge pool of episodes to compare against yet, but the format's changing every week, baby. And this week we have a lot of news. There's a lot of news to talk about because there's a lot of new handhelds. There's a lot of just like interesting developments, I think, in the world of portable gaming. And I think this first thing is just like a really fun one to start with. And it's the Game Boy Operator, which is by Epilogue, I think is the name of the company.
That's right, yeah.
We all have Game Boy Operators, correct? Is that true?
Yes,
we do.
Yes, that's true.
Mm-hmm.
I know you both have upgraded since. I'm still sitting with the Game Boy Operator. But the Game Boy Operator, if you don't know it, is a little device that you can buy and plug into your computer, Mac or PC, I believe. And you can just plug a Game Boy or Game Boy Advance cartridge in there, and it will A, allow you to just play that game on your computer, which is remarkable, and B, allow you to dump that save file as well if you want to take the game and the save file and move it to one of your many next portable consoles. Epilogue has announced that they are adding the ability to use the Epilogue or the Game Boy Operator as a webcam via the Game Boy camera soon, which is an exhilarating idea. And I'm part of me is like, where do I even get a Game Boy camera? But I also desperately need to find where I can get a Game Boy camera because I need to try this. Like, I have to do this.
Oh, there are a lot of them on eBay. Definitely go to
Are there?
eBay.
Well, let me tell you, Brandon. I did this before. I did this last year.
With me.
With you, John. Yes. So I wanted to prove a point. I wanted to test the iPad OS integration with external video devices over USB. And so I went on eBay. I got a Game Boy camera on eBay. I paid something like €100 for a functioning Game Boy camera with a pretty dinged up package, but it was working. So what I did was I put the Game Boy camera into an analog pocket, and then I went from the analog pocket via HDMI to a capture card. I connected the capture card to the iPad. And when you do, the video device is automatically recognized by apps like FaceTime, for example. So I FaceTime John while looking like a Game Boy camera image, and it worked.
Yeah,
Wow.
And I did the same. I did the exact same thing on my end. We had two Game Boy cameras going in a conference call at the same time.
And it was stupid. Yes,
it was. Federico must have overpaid. I think you could probably get one of these, Brendan, for like $50 or $60 last time I looked. So
I'm looking online right now. Yeah, it's anywhere between like $20 and $50, it seems like. But do they require batteries? You need to get a new battery in it?
No.
Okay. I mean, even better. That's wonderful.
I mean, and even if they did, like, I have replaced batteries for Game Boy cartridges, it's pretty trivial.
It's pretty easy. It's just watch batteries, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That's wild.
Yeah.
So will you try this with your Game Boy Operator as well and just see if it's an even easier version of that?
Yeah, I definitely will. I mean, I think that they've been talking about this since about the time the Game Boy Operator came out. The software for the operator has been developed fairly slowly over time, although it's improved quite a bit. I actually call it the Game Boy Toaster because I think it looks a lot like a slot toaster.
It does. It looks a lot like a toaster. Like the prettiest toaster ever built. It is. Yeah. If that was a toaster, I would buy that toaster. If I was like walking down the aisles at Target. Yeah.
Yeah, it has a little it's transparent, has a little LED in there. I'll give it a try. They're also working on, and this has been in the works, I think, for quite a while too, one for the SNES. And
Yes.
that sounds, from reading on Reddit, it sounds like that is very close. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw that later this year or early next year.
Yeah, that's exciting. I'm gonna maybe have to buy one as a gift for Steven, my co-host for Into the Aether, because I know he has a lot of Super Nintendo cartridges and save files he'd like to back up.
Oh,
But
that'd be perfect. Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be very
yeah,
nice.
I'm
Cool.
I'm excited about that. I'm excited to see them just kind of like branch out, and I think the thing about Epilogue and the Game Boy Operator that really works for me, and I'm curious how this compares to the device that you guys have. I just think the software is really good.
It is.
I think the software is really surprisingly good.
Yeah, yeah. The software, it's almost the equivalent, I think, comparing the operator to the open source cartridge reader that John and I have. I
Yeah.
think it's like comparing Mac OS to Linux, in the sense that the
Mm,
operator is like user friendly, intuitive, it looks nice, it does a couple of things really well. The open source cartridge reader is much more powerful, and I think it gives you a lot of controls. But I mean, it literally is a piece of hardware that is custom built by a Japanese company based on an open source spec that is available for everyone on GitHub. It's that sort of project. Like, it's an
Right.
incredible piece of hardware based on an open source PCB board design, that has a tiny display, tons of options, tons of features, but you really have to know what you're doing, and you need to read the manual to understand what you're doing. So I think for a lot of people, especially like a lot of folks who maybe, yeah, and you see these posts from time to time. Oh, I found a box in my parents' attic with all my old Super Nintendo cartridges in the box.
right.
This is what I did, for example, when my mom moved and she found a box of SNES games. I was like, Mom, please give them all to me, and I had to buy the open source cartridge reader to rip those Super Nintendo games and save files. But something like an SNES operator would be so much easier to use because the software is so much better. Whereas the software of the open source cartridge reader is basically like a 1 inch tiny display that you need to operate with a bunch of buttons.
Right. Yeah. It's not even just that. It's like you have to flip switches to make sure you're
Yes,
activating
yes.
the correct cartridge slot, because it's got a bunch of different cartridge slots on the device. So you have to make sure the right ones are activated and the other ones are deactivated. Then you have
Yeah.
to kind of use these little buttons to scroll through multiple menus to make sure you're either, saving the cartridge to file, or you're grabbing save data, or whatever it happens to be. So you really do need a manual to figure out how it works.
Mhm. Interesting. Yeah, I feel like I feel like there's a world in which Epilogue just keeps making all of these devices and then eventually just builds the thing that you guys have, but for
Oh, yeah.
Right.
software, right? Like
Yeah,
it's just
they
like, oh, why
should.
don't we just slap all these things together?
Yeah, they should.
uh,
They really
I
should.
could see them getting to that point.
Yeah.
Well, shout out to Epilogue and the Game Boy camera webcam. I'm excited about that. Should we move on? Do you want to move on to the next thing?
I want to know what the Powkiddy V10 is.
Yeah. So the Powkiddy V10, new handheld from Powkiddy. We're getting new handhelds constantly. We'll talk about that in a minute when we get to Ampernick as well.
Yeah.
But Powkiddy, I think, is a little bit slower to release handhelds. Not that they're not releasing them constantly, but the Powkiddy V10 is a new vertical handheld that honestly it looks just like if you took like a Miu Mini Plus and just kind of like squashed it down a little bit.
Yes.
So the screen, instead of being 4x3, is actually 3x2. And that's the reason that most people are excited about this. There are not a lot of 3x2 handhelds being developed right now. And 3x2 is the aspect ratio for Game Boy Advance
Yeah.
specifically.
Yeah.
So this as like a vertical form factor Game Boy Advance, I think is getting a lot of people very excited. The price isn't like terrible. I think it's $40
It's
right now.
$4, yeah.
At launch, like the colors are nice. There's like a transparent purple one if you want the like atomic purple thing. They have a transparent black one, which I think is becoming increasingly popular in the space. And then, like a beige and a gray one if you want like a kind of Famicom or Super Nintendo kind of vibe. But yeah, I don't know. The thing is, it's like it's $40. It's like not super powerful. Like you could probably get some like okay N64, PlayStation, maybe PSP Dreamcasty stuff out of it, but like that's not the reason you buy this device. I think it's just kind of Powkitty's answer to the Mii Mini. Is kind of my read on it, at least. And I think the 3:2 aspect ratio is the thing that helps it stand apart. Because I do think, and again, I want to talk about this more when we get to Ambernick, but I do think we're getting to a like saturation point, at least in my eyes, with some of this stuff. So them changing the screen aspect ratio, I think, is a very smart decision.
Yeah, I think that is a good decision. And I think, if I remember right, is it pixel doubled so that it's a double the resolution of the GBA? I think
It is. Yeah, it's 480 by 320. So
Right.
stuff's gonna look really good on it. Which I believe wasn't that also the case with the Ambernick RG351P?
I think so. Yeah, but I mean, I like this aspect ratio. I mean, the GBA is kind of the sweet spot for a lot of my retro gaming. That said, though, I've got enough handhelds now that I didn't really feel compelled to go out and get this.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of the shoulder buttons and how much they stick out. But like, I know that it's pretty common design for this sort of like
Right.
thin and small devices. But I am pretty excited about the form factor, the 3x2. Like that is something that I wanted to have for a long time. And at $40, I'm seriously thinking about this. Even though I don't need the V10, but the 3x2 native, without having to do any scaling or without having
it's gonna
to
look
see,
really
like,
good. Yeah,
it's gonna look really nice. GBA is gonna look really nice on this. They are promising like up to PSP and N64 emulation. I would be surprised, given the specs of this device, if you can do even 1.5x or let alone 2x PSP upscaling. That would really surprise me, but we'll see, I guess.
It looks really nice. I think both the transparent ones, if I was going to pick one up, I'd probably get one of those. But in this, I'm kind of with you, Federico. I'm kind of over these like sloped kind of shoulder buttons on the back. I find that they, in the devices that I've used that have them, I find that they end up prohibiting me from putting it in my pocket comfortably.
Yes.
Like that's always the thing that prevents it from being portable. And then it ends up being yet another handheld I just have lying around my house, which is not why I want any of these things. The whole point of the show, dear listener, is that it's a portable console.
It's not called yet another portable that I've got lying around my house,
Exactly. That'd be way too long of an acronym.
It would be.
Yeah, and these shoulder buttons in particular always just get caught on my pocket. So no, thank you.
I think it's time for our regular segment about Ambernick.
Yeah, Ambernick, boy, they've been in the news a lot, and not always for the good things.
So I do have a small piece of follow up before we talk about the news. My follow up is that after waiting for about a month, my RG Cube never showed up, and
God.
So I started getting concerned, obviously, and I think a few days ago I reached the tipping point. I was like, okay, now I need to email Ambernick and trying to understand what's going on. So they confirmed that my RG Cube package got lost in logistics, as they said. It's like, the package is lost in Italian logistics, whatever that means. Probably somebody stole it. I don't know.
That's what I was going to say. It probably got stolen off.
Maybe it actually got lost. I don't know. Anyway, I gotta say, Ambernick very quickly offered a full refund or to ship a brand new unit right away. And I asked, please ship it again, like same model, same address. And within like 30 minutes of me sending the email, like, please give me another one of these, they shipped a new unit. And so now I'm waiting again. The package is once again in China, about to leave China. And hopefully by the next episode, I will be able to talk about the RG Cube, because the one that I originally bought is lost in logistics, as they say.
Wow.
All right. Well, hopefully it'll turn out all right at the end of the day.
Hopefully.
I hope you get your hands on it. People are very happy with that device.
I know.
Like the reviews have been really glowing, which is cool.
I can't wait. And like what I appreciate about the Cube is like the narrative arc, like from the first few leaks on Reddit and people making fun of like the Fisher Price look of it.
I was relentless in our Discord about it.
Yeah, to people.
I went in on that thing. Yeah,
to people actually liking the RG Cube a lot, like the I don't know. It kind of feels like a nice comeback story for I mean, it's a pretty particular design for sure.
It
Yes.
is. And
But
it's
we'll
very
see.
different from their other stuff too. I mean, that's
Yeah.
the thing with Anbernic. Right now, we've got so much stuff coming out from them that it's kind of hard to tell one from the other. There's so many different handhelds with the exact same chipset in them and with slightly different size screens and, slightly different layouts and that sort of thing. I mean, that's one of our next stories is this new Anbernic RG40XX,
Mhm.
which is running the same chipset as the SP,
Yeah.
but with a 4-inch screen. And
Yeah.
it's in a horizontal format. So I don't think there's actually much more to say about that one. I guess it has RGB lights around the thumbsticks
There's
too. Those are the
RGB
only
lights, and so this is a 4:3 screen,
right.
Yeah.
which should be pretty good, I'm guessing, for GameCube emulation and that sort of stuff. There was obviously this is Ambernic, so this is gonna happen. There was a bit of a controversy for this device as well, which Russ on Retro Game Corp's sort of dubbed Portgate. I don't know if you guys have seen
Oh,
the
yes.
video.
I have, yeah.
So basically, so you know how all of these devices, they come, well, this is something that we have discussed on the show before. They all come with a collection of pirated games on the default SD card, which is obviously something that we do not like, but it's pretty common practice for all these Chinese companies. They just don't care about intellectual property. They just give you thousands of ROMs for games out of the box.
Right.
However, this time around, Ambernic went a step beyond. As part of the 64-bit rewrite of their stock operating system, they created some ports of PC games like Celeste and what was the other one?
Shredder's Revenge.
Shredder's Revenge, yeah.
Shredder's Revenge. They created 64-bit ports of those PC games, shipped them in the default SD card to reviewers with a review unit, and posted a 64-bit image of their software on the website. And the image contained the files for all of these PC ports, including Celeste
Unreal.
and Shredder's Revenge, which, I mean, let's face it, was a pretty crappy thing to do, And so they have since reversed the decision, and so they say that the commercial units will not come with pre-installed PC ports of those games, and the image has since been pulled or revised on the Ambernic website, but still, I mean, come on.
Yeah, these are games that are still for sale on a whole bunch of different platforms.
Yeah. You can go on Steam and buy Celeste or Shredder's Revenge.
And
I mean,
specifically indie developers too. That's the thing that really rubs me the wrong way is like, how much does Capcom need your help? But the 3-person team that put together some of these indie games that they just like flagrantly pirated and gave to everybody, like that's kind of where I draw like a real line. It's pretty intense. And I think the thing that's also kind of a bummer about it is Portmaster is literally one of the most interesting things I think about the current wave of Anbernic handhelds. Like the idea of being able to run some of these games on your handheld like this is really spectacular. And I've been using it because it's pretty easy to get off the ground. When you open up Portmaster, you can just like scroll through a list of games and it will show you exactly what files you need to move from your legally purchased copy on Steam onto the SD card to get a lot of these things to run. So I'm playing games like Stardew Valley and Shredder's Revenge, which I just like moved the files over for, and like Zero Ranger, which is a great shoot 'em up that I absolutely adore, and even Balatro is running on my SP, which is wild because it's very small, but it's great. And it just feels like a very cool development, I think, in this space that has kind of been sullied a little bit by this experience. But I'm glad they turned around on it. I think that was a smart move or a smart pivot for them to bail on that immediately after that outcry.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, I think that it really puts that software at risk because it hasn't been used for that kind of thing in the past, and by putting those files up online, it really puts those developers at risk.
yeah.
The other piece of Anbernic news that I saw this week, I wanted to point out again that we've already talked about this, but that when you're charging an RG35 XXSP, there is a bit of a fire hazard, which is if you don't use the cable that comes with it, which is a USB-A to USB-C with a low wattage charging cube, you do run the risk of overheating it and causing the insides to fry. And another person posted on Reddit this week that that's exactly what happened to them. And it sounded an awful lot like Federico's story with his bad power supply. It started smoking and smelling and making a noise. And that's probably the third or fourth story like that I've seen on Reddit so far, which does really make me leery about charging mine. I mean, I will not charge mine when I'm not going to plug it in and then leave the house, for instance.
I'm the same way.
I'm going to do it at my desk with a USB-A to USB-C cable plugged into an iPhone 5-watt cube, which seems to be totally fine with it.
This is exactly what I'm doing. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's in this day and age, you shouldn't have to do that. I mean, people are used to the fact that our devices now are smart enough that they don't take more power than they're able to handle. And that's just not true with some of these Anbernic devices, it seems like.
Yeah, I don't know enough about engineering on this level to really know this, but I think between that and just from some of the cursory reading I've done about the idea that they're using the battery as the heat sink for the chip itself, the SP is increasingly a device that I'm a little bit wary about even recommending to people. Like, I love mine, to be clear. I use it a lot. It's sitting right in front of me. I modded it recently. I have like a sticker of cloud on it. I got some buttons that look like materia slots.
Are you playing Final Fantasy VII on it?
I am, yeah.
Really?
Yeah, it rocks. Like, it's great. But also, I am increasingly anxious about charging it.
Yeah,
so
same.
Frequently I'll play and then it'll, start to die out, and then I'll just have it sitting on my desk for, a couple days before I'm like, I should charge this. And then I do it while I'm like you, John. I'm sitting there watching it to like make sure nothing weird happens. Because I think we've all seen those videos of, when Samsung had this problem with their Galaxy phones way back when, all those like CCTV videos of people's phones just like starting to smoke up in their pockets. I'm worried about something like that happening. And again, like you said, there have been only 3, as far as I've seen, 3 confirmed cases of this, but that's still, I think, too many to be seeing publicly, because
Bigger than
it
zero,
raises the question.
so.
Yes, and it raises the question how many people are not posting about it.
Right, right.
How many people are like just going to Anbernic support and saying like, "Hey, my device lit on fire." Because hey, not everyone's as online as we are. I think that's a thing that should be reiterated into a microphone as much as possible. Yeah, definitely, especially us. So not everyone knows, like, I'm going to go find this subreddit specifically to talk about this. So it raises some questions about this device. It raises some questions about like the QA, I think, with a lot of these devices. I mean, I think we're planning on maybe talking about it a little bit more in the next episode, but I got my MIUI A30 in the mail recently, and it just doesn't work straight up. Like,
oh no.
Yeah.
I messed around with it for like 4 or 5 hours, like,
oh my gosh,
like really hours trying to get it to work. Just does not. And that's just the thing. That's just the thing that happens with these devices. Usually, in this case, it's more related to the SD card slot than it is the battery. But in the cases where it is the battery, I think it's pretty inexcusable to be selling a device that has that kind of problem. And I'm hoping, as with a lot of these companies, I'm hoping that they start to revise the hardware, because that's the thing that MIUI is very known for. They will continue to revise the hardware. I think they're on the version 4 of the original MIUI Mini at this point. I'm hoping that there's some kind of like variation of the SP, so I can like safely put this one somewhere else forever and get a better one.
Yeah, my A30 is coming today, actually, and this
nice.
is where I was going to warn Federico before that don't get suckered into the Powkitty price, the Powkitty V10 $40, because that's what I think caught my eye and Brendan's eye, was that we were able to pick up these A30s for $30, which is fantastic, and I'm very glad it was only $30 after hearing Brendan's story. I'm hoping that mine doesn't have the same problems, but I think I ordered it on maybe the 2nd or 3rd of July, right before the long holiday weekend here in the US, and it's taken a long time to get here from China, but it should be here this afternoon, and I'll check it out and we can compare notes next time we record.
Nice.
I have talked to other people who bought the A30 with the same deal that we did, and theirs is fine. So I think I just kind of got like a fluke one-off device. I am considering getting another one though, because
Yeah.
I will say just quick first impressions. We could talk about it more in depth because I would like to compare it to the RG28XX, which I've been using a lot actually. They're these two like Game Boy Micro size devices. I think that a lot of people are pitting against one another. The A30's controls feel so good. Like it
Yeah.
feels amazing. And I was so like I haven't even been able to play a single game on it, but I can already tell that it probably feels a lot better to play games on that thing. So I'm
Well,
excited.
that sounds good. Yeah, I got the Famicom colored one, the kind of
The gold
brown
one?
Yeah, they're in gold,
Yeah.
very very gaudy, but
Yeah.
but I'm looking forward to it.
No. Gold devices forever. Bring it back, Apple.
Yeah, eventually, right? You know
I
what,
hope so.
guys? A&Neo is back at it.
I'm really excited about this one, actually.
I am too. This is the
This thing
the
rocks.
Pocket Evo.
And they tell you Evo stands for evolution. That's something that they have on their website. Just in case there
case
were
you were
any
curious.
doubts.
Their website's great.
Yeah. But please, John, tell us more about the Pocket Evo.
Yeah, so the Pocket Evo is an awful lot like the Odin 2, I think, except that it's got a little bit bigger screen. It's OLED, because it's a 7-inch OLED screen, which looks great. And it's 120 hertz refresh rate, which I believe the Odin is 60. So those are the big differences there. I believe the chipsets are exactly the same in the two of them. They're Snapdragon Gen 2. So it's got a lot of similarities to the Odin, but it looks really good too. I really like the way the controller grips look.
Same.
I especially like the white model. It comes in black as well. And I've been dying for an OLED device for retro gaming. So this could be it for me.
I was thinking about this, and I think part of the reason why I've been sort of mulling over the Odin 2 forever is I really want to get a comprehensive Android-based device, but I really would like it to have an OLED display with a high refresh rate. And the combination of these two things, so the 120 hertz refresh rate and OLED, plus the comfort grips, I really love the way that this device comes together in this package. I am a little bit skeptical about the pricing because A&E, they historically tend to overprice their things a little bit.
Very high. Very high, yeah.
But I'm still pretty excited about this one. Hall effect, joysticks, running Android. The Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 means, you're going to get a lot of performance headroom for most games and most emulation. I don't know.
Some of the specs are missing. I couldn't find any information on what version of Wi-Fi it's using and stuff like that. But I guess
they even have charts on their website. So they're claiming that this is going to be the lightest Android-based handheld with also the biggest battery. But what I find interesting is that they're putting asterisks after the first number.
Oh yeah, look at that.
Yeah,
so for example, they say
too.
it's gonna wait for asterisk
XX.
grams. It's okay, so is it gonna be less than the 401 grams than the Razer Edge, or less than the 420 grams of the Switch OLED? It's unclear. Also, the battery is gonna be 8 XXX milliampere per hour battery. Okay. I don't know. Interesting decision. And obviously it just has high-speed Wi-Fi without numbers.
Right.
We'll see. I don't think the Indiegogo campaign is not live at the moment.
No, it's not.
Okay.
No.
Very
I
soon.
think if the Neo Pocket S, which is their most recent device, is any indication, which has a lot of the same specs in terms of just chipset and stuff, that thing is, I believe, about $400 starting. I would guess that this is going to be closer to $500.
Yeah, I was gonna say 500 too.
Maybe $550
For sure.
Yeah, probably.
I consider this is a weird comparison, but as a person who does a lot of photography and owns a couple of cameras, I consider Aya Neo to be the Leica of the retro handheld scene, where it's the build quality is going to be amazing and it's going to perform really well. But there are going to be a couple things here and there with the software that are going to make you scratch your head, and the price is out of this world.
Yeah.
Because I've been considering getting an Aya Neo for a long time. The Pocket S in particular is the closest I've ever gotten to actually getting one. But at the time that they released it, I already had the Odin 2, so it didn't make too much sense.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is tempting. It is tempting. It's all about the screen for me with this one because otherwise I kind of wish if I would definitely be in if it had a more modern chipset than the Odin does.
Oh yeah,
I
absolutely.
mean,
I
are
think
there I don't think there are any handhelds, just phones with Snapdragon 8 Gen 3.
Yeah, I don't think there are any.
There are no, probably because the Gen 3 is still so expensive. And so most of these handheld manufacturers, they cannot afford to put one. Like you can find plenty of smartphones at this point with the Snapdragon 8
Right.
Gen 3 inside, but no dedicated handhelds, probably because the cost is still so high.
Yeah, you'd end
Yeah.
up with $1,000 handheld
Yeah.
or something like
Yeah,
that.
exactly. Yeah.
yeah, which is like that's just untenable. It might maybe I should move an upcoming story I was going to talk about up here. Maybe this is the best time to talk about the Nothing CMF1. I could just touch on it.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about it.
Yeah, I could touch on it real quick, but Nothing, a camera manufacturer, that is, I think Nothing was founded by the original founder of OnePlus,
True.
if I'm
Yes.
not mistaken.
Yes.
Went on to create Nothing, interesting phone manufacturer in the Android space, who I think has really like tripled and quadrupled down on saying like if we make a really stunning design, that will probably move units, and the answer has been yes in a lot of cases. I think their earbuds a lot of people really like.
Yeah.
They're not really sacrificing too much in terms of performance to price. They're doing a pretty good job because OnePlus initially started as like this halfway point between budget and performance, and I think Nothing is kind of continuing that because OnePlus has turned into like yet another $1,000 phone you can buy. Anyway, Nothing just released their even more budget line called CMF, which stands for Color, Material, and Finish, I believe. And they announced their first phone called the CMF1. And I was reading a bunch of early preview coverage of this because it's getting a lot of press pickup, mainly because it has a bunch of easy access screws. So you can unscrew the back, put in like new back plates if you want to change the color of your phone. You can screw in a bunch of stuff like a lanyard or a kickstand, and it'll be like mounted on as if you're like bolting it to the device itself. And they're of course saying, hey, we have a bunch of other things that we want to create in this ecosystem that we're going to allow people to buy. And I'm reading through all this stuff and I'm like, oh yeah, that seems fun. That seems cool. And then I got to the specs section and I was kind of like, I don't think anyone is going to look at this as an emulation device, but they really should be looking at this as an emulation device because it has a Dimensity 7300 chip, which is like pretty much the equivalent of the Retroid Pocket 4 Pro right now. It has 8 gigabytes of RAM, which is exactly the same as the Retroid Pocket 4 Pro, and has a 5,000 milliamp hour battery, which is also exactly the same as the Retroid Pocket 4 Pro. The main thing where it deviates is that it has an OLED screen with 120 hertz refresh rate, which I think is pretty remarkable. And all of that is, again, at the exact same price as the Retroid Pocket 4 Pro at $200. That is a really compelling package for this scene specifically. Like I even emailed Nothing. I was like seeing if I could get a review unit. It seems like probably not. But what I said to them in the email was like, you built a great phone. I think you also maybe built the best Android emulation device of the year.
Right.
At this price with those specs, that is a really compelling case to be made. And I think a lot of it just comes from the fact that they have first access to a lot of these components that a lot of these companies like iNeo and Ein and whoever, Ambernick, are getting, third or fourth hand. They're getting, like when BlackBerry is done making phones, they're getting the screens from old BlackBerries, right?
Right.
Nothing has the buying power to be able to go and get, some of these latest screens and some of these latest batteries and throw them in their devices. So this at $200, I was like, I need to try it because, of course I'm going to have to throw a controller on it. But I have a bunch lying around. I've been testing controllers forever, like phone grips and stuff. I have the Backbone that has USB-C. I have like a GameSir that looks just like an Xbox controller. I have enough things where I could try and turn this into a dedicated emulation device. And I did. I bought one, and it comes today as of the time of this recording. It's getting delivered, which is pretty wild.
Nice.
So maybe on the next episode I'll talk a little bit about it. But it's a really compelling argument because I think like there's obviously a world in which a lot of people would just rather buy Retroid Pocket 4 Pro, and I totally understand where they're coming from on that front. Like that is maybe in a lot of ways the better package, but the OLED screen is something that I just, like you guys, have wanted for so long on a device like this. And that to me, seems like the cheapest entry point to get one on a device capable of playing, up through GameCube and some Switch stuff even. So got to try it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think too, the fact that it has these screw points on the back where you can remove the back plate and you can switch it with other colors, but you could also use that for accessories. And I did see a concept on Reddit where someone did like a concept mock-up of a slide out kind of controller for this, which would be
like
really
a PSP
cool.
Go.
Yeah, exactly. And the idea of that and the ability for third parties to hook things onto this without too much trouble is really compelling, I think.
Yeah. I'm interested to see how much they invest in this. From what I have heard talking to people who know some people, it sounds like there is a extremely high demand for this device, which is, I think, why there are no review units going out outside of that initial wave. They're even launching it in the US this week as a quote unquote beta program. So people can like get their hands on it and start to, talk about it. And I think, develop some ideas for it, which hypothetically also means that they are keeping a very close eye on this as like their sub brand and really, I think, want to expand it. And if that's the case, and if somebody builds that thing or if nothing builds it themselves, I am all over that immediately. Like nothing, if you're listening to this, please hit me up and send me that if that becomes a reality in some way, shape, or form. Any controller you make, I will buy immediately.
I kind of wonder if maybe nothing should seriously consider really turning to this gaming market for this sort of device, especially.
I agree.
And I don't know if that's been confirmed anywhere. I don't think the special screw in the back has any software communication with the device.
No, I don't think it does.
Yeah,
I think it's just an attachment point.
Yeah, because what could be interesting potentially would be like if the screw was a little bit like MagSafe, for example, on the iPhone, where MagSafe is a magnet by and large, but it also has basic data communication back and forth. Like imagine if you could attach a compatible controller via the special mounting screw in the back of the phone. And when you do that, the phone sort of takes you into a launcher for like a gaming experience of some kind. Now that would be interesting. Like the modularity that they're going for here, they should really embrace it with more accessories, maybe an open spec for others to build upon, and a software story. But like this is the obviously this is the first one, and if the history with nothing is of any indication, they're gonna follow up with more and more models. I mean, nothing has been making the first model of like the first Nothing phone and the first Nothing ears came out like 2 years ago, and there's already plenty of models. So this is one of the more interesting stories in tech for me, like what this company has been doing over the past couple of years. I don't necessarily agree with all of their decisions. Like I think, for example, having ChatGPT in your earbuds is not as an incredible innovation as they say, but they're making interesting stuff, and that's exciting.
Yeah, it really is.
I'm so with you.
Yeah.
I think to your point though, Federico, so they released a whole line of accessories in the CMF line as well. They have a smartwatch, they have a GAN charger, which is an interesting choice, and they have 2 earbuds, and one of them, I think only one of them, comes with a thing that looks just like the screw on the back, like the mounting screw on the back of the phone, and actually is a controller for the volume of your device.
That's
so whatever
wild.
Bluetooth device or whatever device you pair via Bluetooth, you can use the little wheel on the headphone case itself to control the volume. And I'm like, okay, if that's part of the design language you're introducing, then you should also carry that through to the phone itself and allow people to program that.
Yeah, you should put a dial on everything. Let me spin the dial,
Yes.
Yes.
Put dials on everything.
Put dials on
Ambernick.
everything. Yeah.
Ambernick, you've released 100 million handhelds. Where's the one with the dial on it?
Yeah.
Exactly.
That doesn't
everybody
catch
wants
fire.
everybody wants a volume wheel in 2024.
Yeah. Just bring the click wheel back. Let's take this to the logical endpoint.
Speaking of hardware, I have a small news item and a piece of follow-up. The small news item is we now have the first official certified Thunderbolt 5 cables.
We do, and you can't do much with them, can you?
you cannot do anything with them.
Oh, come on, Federico. I think Sean Hollister at The Verge said you could connect two $4,500 Razer gaming laptops together and transfer files between them, right?
Imagine that. And we still don't know whether, but the thing is, I saw the article. So these cables are from Cable Matters, a pretty respectable, cable brand. I have a bunch of their cables. It's a good company making good accessories. But these are Intel certified Thunderbolt 5 cables. Now, those Razer laptops that claim to have Thunderbolt 5 compatibility, it's unclear what Thunderbolt 5 chipset they're using. And
I think it's proprietary is what I've read,
it's not totally a given that these cables are going to support the full Thunderbolt 5 specs, even when connected to those Razer laptops. And I believe Sean Hollister said, we're going to test this and report back. Because, that is the story with these Thunderbolt 5 cables. There's nothing else to use them with. Obviously, they're going to be backwards compatible with Thunderbolt 3 and 4. And USB, of course. That's the story with Thunderbolt 5. This is mostly just an exciting glimpse into the future where we're going to get Thunderbolt 5 support on Apple devices, on Windows PCs, on eGPUs eventually, hubs, eGPUs. That's potentially, I wouldn't be surprised at this point if we are going to start seeing the first Thunderbolt 5 accessories at CES 2025. So there
were one or two at this year's CES.
Just a couple.
I think they were hubs mainly that were being shown off so far.
Yeah, the main problem is that all of these accessories, all of these hubs, if you open them up and you take a look at the board, they tend to all use the same 4 or 5 chipsets. Like it's not like every single manufacturer is coming up with their own Thunderbolt 5 controller design. They're going to a supplier in China and they're picking and choosing off the shelf these Thunderbolt 5 controllers that allow them to build docks, hubs, whatever you want, eGPUs, whatever you want. And now there just aren't any chipsets, that these manufacturers can buy and implement in their accessories. So, and then there's Razer, of course, doing 2 laptops with a custom Thunderbolt 5 controller. The follow-up also related to cables. If you recall, I was waiting for this promised miracle cable from China that promised to be a full-on USB 4 certified 10-meter fiber cable. Now, I waited for 2 months for this cable, with the goal being I'm going to leave my custom-built eGPU, the giant enclosure that we spoke about a couple of episodes ago. I'm going to leave the enclosure with the graphics card in my office, and I want to run a 10-meter cable to my bed so that I can play with Dragon's Dogma or Elden Ring in bed with my Legion Go and the eGPU sitting and making noise and making heat in the office. And I don't want to lose any performance. So I need to find a USB 4 certified cable. Now, through its ups and downs with the company, in a moment of weakness, I guess, I found this cable via a Google ad, and it felt too good to be true, but it was only $199. And I was like, you know what? If this actually works, whatever, I'm gonna try it. And it was it was an unknown company called Long Gone Cable.
That name just doesn't inspire confidence.
No, not at all. Yeah.
I bought it, and for a few weeks there was radio silence. And eventually I emailed them. I was like, hey, should I cancel my order? Does this cable even exist? And actually, those folks at Long Gone, they have been so kind. We started this process in mid-May, going back and forth. So basically, Initially, they told me pretty upfront, look, we can either refund you or you need to wait because we need to certify your cable. We can only get it to work up to 8 meters. And at that point, initially, I was like, okay, then why do you sell it for 10 meters on your website? Right. But then they said, look, we're going to just tell us what kind of peripherals you need to connect. We're going to buy the peripherals and we're going to test it in the manufacturing lab for you. It's like, okay, look, I need to
Good luck. Yeah.
I need to connect to the specific eGPU board, and it's like, yeah, it needs to be USB 4 certified. So basically, they couldn't find the board, and I mean, no surprise given how custom of a thing it is. So
Right.
essentially, these folks they ended up buying an Apple Studio display to make sure that the cable would hold the signal up to 10 meters. And they ran a bunch of tests, and they told me, we think we got it, but you need to wait a few more weeks. So we're now in mid-June. A couple of weeks ago, they got in touch with me again. They said, so we have a cable for you. It's not from the long gone brand, but it's from our other brand, King Cable, with 2 Ks.
Now, see, that inspires a little bit of confidence right there. This is the King cable.
It's the King Cable with
Perfect.
2 Ks. It's special. I was like, I told them, look, as long as it's USB 4 certified and you promise that it's 10 meters, fiber, and USB 4, like it doesn't have to be Thunderbolt, it needs to be USB 4,
Right.
then please ship it to me. And they were like, yeah, it's USB 4, it's 10 meters, and it's fiber. I got it. And guys, it works.
Wow.
That's wonderful.
It's truly the King cable.
It's the
Yes.
King
Yes.
cable. It's the King cable. It's USB 4, 10 meters, fiber. It's even so nicely braided. Like, it has to be the best high quality cable I have. Like,
Wow.
Well, you had a whole team building one cable for you, Federico. I mean, come on.
I mean, it did feel like they were sending me pictures of like these folks. They went above and beyond to make sure that I was satisfied with this USB 4 cable. And
They bought like a $1,500 studio display just to test your $200 cable. That's pretty impressive.
it's pretty impressive. And what is also impressive is that I can leave my. So here's what I've done. I have my eGPU in the office that is always connected to my gaming monitor. But when I want to play games in bed with my Legion Go, obviously the monitor needs to be powered off, because otherwise the eGPU defaults to displaying my game on the monitor and instead of the Legion Go. So I bought a HomeKit smart button that allows me to power off the monitor when I don't want to use it. I connected the monitor to a HomeKit smart plug. So either from pressing this button on my desk or using Control Center on my iPhone, I can make sure that no power is going to the monitor. When the monitor is disconnected, the eGPU defaults to showing games on the Legion Go internal display.
Right.
So what I can do is I can just power off the monitor, turn on the Legion Go, turn on the eGPU, connect the cable, and slowly walk to the bedroom and, lay in bed, I'm unrolling the cable as I go. And yeah, I can play Elden Ring and Dragon's Dogma and, Dragon Quest, whatever, just, with the power of a 4090 in the office over USB 4. It's a dream come true.
It's remarkable.
It's been a long
I'm
journey.
so happy
Federico.
this worked out for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
It's amazing.
yeah, I was very surprised. All right. I think that about does it for the news recap this week, which it's kind of odd that usually in the summer, for other podcasts, we don't have a lot of news recaps to go
Right.
by. But that's not the case with MPC.
No, I actually didn't think we would have that much. And a lot of this just popped up in the last few days before we recorded. So it's
Yeah.
kind of nice that they took care of it for us.
I
Yeah.
have something else that I wanted to bring to the show as a sort of
Okay.
mini topic.
Sure.
I bought a Steam Deck again.
Of course you did.
I love that. I love
So
that for you.
I sold my Steam Deck 3 months ago, and I ended up
Yeah.
buying one again. And specifically, I want to say that it's Brandon's fault.
Oh.
Yeah, in a way.
What did I
so?
do? What did I do this
Yeah,
time?
yeah. So it's basically a Dragon Quest 11 machine.
Oh, totally
Oh, I
fine.
see.
Yeah.
Understandable.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's totally
See?
a valid reason to buy a Steam Deck.
So-
Yeah, I get it.
So, small parenthesis. I am 41 hours into Dragon Quest 11. I just got to Act 2, Brandon, where
Ooh.
the bad guy shows up, and I was like,
Mm-hmm.
first of all, what? Like, I was not expecting the plot twist at all. And what
Oh,
happened when you
man.
reach
Yeah.
Yggdrasil? It's like, okay. And so I was playing this game on the Legion Go,
Yeah.
and what was really annoying me is that the Legion Go, being a Windows handheld, it doesn't have sleep and resume.
Right.
And Dragon Quest XI is absolutely a game that demands sleep and resume. I think it's
I
something
agree.
that you said, Brendan, on Into the Aether a few years ago. I went back and listened to that episode. That Dragon
Mm.
Quest XI is like a fairy tale to before bed.
Oh,
You
yeah.
know, like you play for like 30 to 40 minutes before going to sleep, and the game is really designed that way, like how it tells you what was going on every time you boot it up, and just
One of the greatest quality of life features in
yes,
any RPG.
yeah.
Yeah, there's a character who pops up and just gives you a little recap of what you did the last time you played.
Which
It's amazing.
surprisingly so few games have copied. Like
Yeah, that is nice.
I don't understand. Anyway, Dragon Quest XI has some kind of auto saving, but it doesn't let you manually save whenever you want. You need to go to a
Right.
church or to a statue to pray and sort of confess your sins and save your progress.
Mhm.
And with the
Like most games. Yeah.
yeah. With the Windows based with the Windows based handheld, that's really not ideal, because like if you're playing this game before bed and maybe you're about to fall asleep but you cannot save, that means you're going to lose your progress. And unless you want to keep your Legion Go running by your nightstand, making noise and heat right next to where you sleep, well, that's not ideal, you know? So I was slow as I was playing the game. I was slowly realizing I need a Steam Deck again, because when I'm about to fall asleep, I just want to press the power button, put the game to sleep, and pick it up the next day. Just, sleep and resume. And that's why I ended up buying a Steam Deck again, this time with a twist. Because I fell in love with the nano texture display of the iPad Pro so much, I ended up getting the what's it called, etched glass Steam
Yes.
Deck, Steam Deck OLED with the
Mhm.
the expensive option. I love it. I love it. It's still an absolutely gorgeous display, and it just reminded me how much the Steam Deck has value when it comes to being something that you can pick up, play a game for a few minutes, and lock it and find it again the next day, which is not
Mhm.
Mm.
something that any of these Windows-based handhelds can do because of the
That's
nature
true.
of Windows. It just doesn't support sleep and resume like Linux does. And it's basically like right now, my Steam Deck is a portable Dragon Quest XI machine, and it's incredible.
Totally valid.
A
Yeah.
couple other things I want to point out. I've been using the suite of accessories by a company called. They used to be called Deckmate. Now they're called the Mechanism, and they make a bunch of these mate labeled accessories. They make the Ally Mate and the Deckmate. So these are basically mounting options for different types of accessories that you want to mount to a Steam Deck or ROG Ally. They also make a
Mm.
universal mounting clip for something like a Legion Go that I have on order, but it hasn't arrived yet. So the Deckmate, you snap it onto the back of the Steam Deck. It doesn't cover the vents, it doesn't cover anything, and it gives you a little mounting slot. And to this mounting slot, you can choose from a variety of compatible accessories that you can mount. One of them is a phone mount. If you want to put your phone above the Steam Deck with MagSafe,
Okay.
say you want to watch a Twitch stream or a YouTube video
Sure.
as you're playing, or listen to a
Wow.
podcast, whatever, you can do that. Or in my case, I have a very slim Thunderbolt dock by a company called Pluggable that is only sold on Amazon US. John shipped me 2 of these Pluggable docks
Quite a while ago now.
quite a while ago. Thank you, John, for doing that, because I cannot
Yeah,
purchase
sure.
them from Italy. It's the slimmest Thunderbolt dock, to my knowledge, in existence. It's about the size of an external hard drive, like an external SSD. I can mount this pluggable dock to the back of the Steam Deck, and then I can connect my X-Real glasses to the dock.
Oh,
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
and play Dragon Quest XI on my X-Real glasses while looking at the ceiling in bed with the Steam Deck on my lap. It's
this
the
is the dream.
it's the most comfortable thing ever. Like,
Yeah.
it's incredible.
That sounds great.
It's been so comfortable doing this. And I mean, obviously, as you can imagine, Dragon Quest XI on the ceiling looks fantastic.
I'm sure.
Yeah. So at this point in my life, I guess there's a place for both the Steam Deck and the Legion Go. There's no way I want to play Elden Ring or Dragon's Dogma on the Steam Deck. That's what the Legion Go and the eGPU are for.
Right.
But for this kind of like older games, like PS4 era games or any indie game, especially games that, are best experienced with sleep and resume every day, I'm reaching for the Steam Deck now.
What a story, Federico.
Yeah. Look, I'm just happy that you're playing Dragon Quest XI. That's my big takeaway from this story. Just the more people I can get to pick that game
Man.
up and play it all the way to the end, the happier I'm going to be as
Man,
a person.
I
yeah.
do think so far it has a pretty good shot at being my favorite JRPG ever.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
it's definitely mine.
Yeah.
Definitely mine.
Yeah, possibly
with you.
gonna end up in my list of favorite games of all time. Like, it just there's something to the cozy vibe of the game and some of the plot twists and how challenging it can be in some places where like it actually demands you not to grind but also to think and strategize. Yeah. It's incredible. Yeah. So
Yeah, it. If you go to my profile on Backlogged, it is on my top 5. It is.
there you go.
I think it's a masterpiece. I think it's incredible. And the Steam Deck is a great place for it. Honestly, my biggest takeaway from owning the Legion Go for a little bit and still having the Steam Deck, and also something that doesn't really fit this show but is worth just touching on. I've been using the game porting toolkit a lot on my Mac Studio.
Ooh, okay.
I've just really kind of bought into this idea of using Steam for everything just because I can transfer my save files between all my devices.
Yes.
Right.
That's a thing that I totally forgot about and just really hadn't acknowledged at all. And I've been thinking about a lot more recently. Yeah.
Yeah. Should we talk about mobile gaming?
We should. I suggested this topic because I've been making kind of a concerted effort to re-explore gaming, especially on the iPhone, because I don't think Apple does a very good job with integrating gaming with the iPhone or the iPad for that matter, and especially the Mac. But that doesn't mean that there aren't good experiences to be had on iOS for gaming. And having also, used the Anode 2 for a while now, I have a feel for the Android world when it comes to gaming as well. And I thought it'd be fun to kind of compare some notes in terms of, how you can go about doing that. What are the options? What are some of the accessories that are useful to have for gaming on those devices, and where things stand? Do you guys play much on your iPhone?
Emulation now, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Same.
for sure. I wouldn't say that I'm playing like quote unquote regular games downloaded from the App Store. I think the one exception that I've made lately is installing what's the full name? Zenless Zone Zero. Is that
Zenless Zone
Yeah,
Zero. Yeah,
that's-
the new
that's-
Mihoyo game.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
the one regular App Store game I've installed on my iPhone and iPad probably in like a couple of years, I'm gonna say.
That game rocks.
All right. How about you, Brendan?
Yeah, I play a lot of mobile games actually. It's a thing where I try and seek out mobile games whenever I can on my iPhone specifically. I think that there are a lot of very interesting developers making really interesting stuff and have been for a long time. I think like the one that I could point to always is Zach Gage, who made games like Spell Tower and Good Sudoku and just all of the Not Words, like all of these classic games. But there are a lot of developers like Zach Gage out there making stuff constantly. And I think the more I can seek those developers out and kind of champion their work, the better. Actually, one that I found recently, thanks to somebody in the Into the Aether Discord, is a guy named Arnold Rowers,
Hmm.
who has released a bunch of games. And his game that he released recently this year is called Gun Show. It's a roguelike
Huh.
where you play as a just kind of like uh, it's like a Western idea, and you're getting like attacked by a bunch of guys. You just need to like try and shoot them and not die, but
Oh, I
everybody
think.
dies in one hit. And I
Hmm.
can't stop playing it. I've been playing it like nonstop. So, point being, yes, I am deep in the world of mobile games, and I am constantly trying to seek them out if I can.
Yeah, I'm curious
What's
how
the
you go
game
about.
called? Because when I search for gun show on the App Store, it gives me like some kind of a gun convention schedule app.
I think I saw
It's
this on Touch Arcade recently.
GUNCHO, Gun Show.
Oh, okay. So it's not about buying guns in the United
No, no,
States.
no,
Okay.
no, no, no. It's like, yeah,
Oh, this looks nice.
Gun Show.
Okay.
Yeah, it's awesome. It takes a little bit of learning, but once you get into it, it has become my go-to. I love this game dearly.
I'm curious what you do for discovery, Brendan, because I think one of the things that's hard on iOS is finding the good games because there really is so much junk on the App Store. And
Yeah.
to a degree, I think Apple Arcade was designed originally to maybe be that discovery method, but it really hasn't worked out that way. I mean, Apple Arcade to me it's a weird place. I mean, it's definitely geared towards, I guess, kind of a family vibe more than anything, but it has a lot of casual games, which there's nothing wrong with
Yeah.
casual games, but the mix between those casual games and sometimes kind of these reworked classics that show up, and then other games by people like Zach Gage, who has games there, or the Snowman team with Alto's Odyssey and things like that. It's
Hmm.
just, to me, arcade doesn't hang together very well, and for a lot of indie developers, it's really not been a solution for them. It seems as though many of them have just remained on the App Store, where discovery really is a problem. Now, I think one company that's doing it probably better than Apple is Netflix to a degree. Netflix,
Absolutely. Totally
Netflix,
agree.
Netflix's collection of games, they do have a lot of games that are add-ons to existing like reality TV shows and things, which aren't for me, of course, but they also have some really nice indie titles and things that have been out for a while, but maybe are later in their life cycle. And I think that they've been had some life breathed back into them because they someone can go with a Netflix subscription and just download that, and it doesn't cost them anything on top of their Netflix subscription that they're probably already using. So I've been really happy to see the Netflix stuff, and I've downloaded a ton of games from there.
Yeah, I think Netflix. This is a thing that I don't feel the need to champion Netflix as a company, but I do
Yeah,
think that it is worth mentioning how much they have done. I think for a lot of indie developers recently, because you and I have talked about this, John. I know at least, but I feel like Netflix. Their lineup of games specifically feels like a best of indie games from the past decade.
right.
Some whoever is specifically picking out and curating those games and like working on those deals and deciding what games are going to get ported to Netflix games, that person has incredible taste. Like they just have like winner after winner after winner. I think Hades is on there,
It
right? At
is,
this
yeah,
point.
yeah.
Into the Breach is on there. I'm just looking at the ones that I have downloaded. Pointy, which is a new game by the developer of Downwell,
Hmm.
is on there. I think they have their own version of Dead Cells, which is bizarre because I think there are now 3 versions of Dead Cells on the App Store. There's the one you can buy, the Netflix one, and the Apple Arcade one, all happening simultaneously, which I think also increases the lack of discoverability in some
Yeah,
ways.
for sure. Now they've got
And I think
Kentucky
Vampire
Rock.
Survivors, right?
Yes.
Oh no, that's
No,
getting
that's
added to Apple
arcade.
Arcade,
Yeah, that's arcade.
which is strange.
Yeah, it's very strange. They've got Kentucky Route Zero, for instance. That's another one
Yeah.
that's on there.
Immortality.
Yeah, there's a Sonic game, I believe, and maybe Shredder's Revenge. I think Shredder's Revenge is on there too. So there, it's
I think you're right.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's a lot of great games, and I think that really is what it comes down to. I think there's someone there at Netflix that has very good taste. I have no idea whether this is going to be successful for Netflix. Everything I've read about it says that it's a very small fraction of their revenue, but I think it does, as a service, probably make it a little more sticky if someone doesn't want to lose their games by,
Yeah.
you
And
know,
for some games, I think like Into the Breach that were not on mobile at all,
yeah,
if Netflix is subsidizing the cost or even paying whole cloth for the cost of getting that port made at all, and there's a limited exclusivity window, then that means that those developers can put in that work to get that game on iOS and then eventually, move it to the main app store if they want to later, which is what we're seeing a lot with Apple Arcade, like the launch Apple Arcade games, some of the ones that were huge hits, like Sayonara Wild Hearts or even Fantasian more recently by
mm-hmm.
Mistwalker. Those games are starting to appear elsewhere. They're on Switch, they're on Steam, they're all over the place. And they're probably, if I was to guess, maybe I'm wrong about this, but I would guess that they're going to hit the main app store eventually as well.
I think so too. I mean, I don't think there are all that many exclusives on the App Store on Arcade any longer, but I mean, there are some for sure. And I guess, of course, there's on Android, there's the Google Play Store, and there's a lot of overlap there in terms of at least the big name games between those two. I mean, I guess the other thing that I do a lot though is I use my iPhone from time to time as either a local or cloud streaming device, and it works pretty well for that in a pinch. I mean, as long as you have a decent controller connected and a good Wi-Fi signal, that's a great thing to do. I don't, Federico, do you do that at all?
Sometimes, yeah. The main problem is that due to limitations with Safari, and I think there are gonna be some changes in iOS 18. But the problem is, so far, if you wanted to use something like NVIDIA GeForce Now, for example,
Right.
you always ran into a resolution cap that didn't allow you to stream, for example, games at 4K at 120 hertz, for example,
Right.
because of those limitations of PWAs on iOS and iPadOS. I
Yeah.
think I saw somewhere on Reddit that there's a way in iOS 18 to unlock a new resolution,
Huh.
but the thing is,
Hmm.
it's Nvidia and Microsoft, all these companies, they can make native game streaming apps for the App Store now, but they
But they
haven't.
haven't. I
Yeah.
know. I
So
know.
now
They've been
we're
burned. They've already been burned. I don't think they're going to, at least not
yeah.
anytime soon.
Yeah. So that's why I still prefer using something like a Legion Go, for example, or a Steam Deck if you want to stream, because then you don't run into any of those limitations. So you can stream whatever you want, or you can use, like an Android tablet, for example. I've seen plenty of people use Android tablets as streaming devices, which is also something that I considered a few months ago, and then I didn't go for it because I didn't feel like I needed another tablet in my life.
You got enough of those.
That's understandable.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
How about you, Brendan? Have you done any streaming with your iPhone or an Android device?
Yeah, I do a lot with both, actually.
Okay.
My Odin, I primarily, I would say, these days have been using it for streaming, more so than actual like on-device emulation or playing games outside of Zenless Zone Zero, which I've been playing a lot on the Odin, which is very good. But yeah, there's a great developer. I forget the name of the developer, but they made two apps for the Odin that I really love. One of them is called PS Play, and the
Oh
other one is
yeah.
called XBX Play.
Yeah.
Yes.
Both of which are just much better versions of remote play or game streaming from your Xbox or your PlayStation 5. And thankfully, I learned this week that they also made a version of PS Play for iOS. It's called Mirror Play, and it came out, I think, semi-recently. And similarly, very good, especially with the backbone. The thing that's worth mentioning, in case you're curious why you would use these apps over remote play, you can go in and change a lot of the like nitty-gritty things about resolution and bitrate, and just
Right.
like make sure you're getting the highest quality stuff, because they're generally, through the official apps, kind of downgrading that, I think, because they're handling so much. I'm not really sure, but I think they're handling so much that they are just like assuming that your device is worse than it actually is, and you can say, no, I have pretty good Wi-Fi. I have the latest iPhone. It's gonna be all right. And then you can get Mirror Play and play that way. So yeah, I've been doing that a lot. The NVIDIA streaming side, I've tried here and there. I haven't loved it enough to commit to a subscription. But on the Xbox side and the PlayStation side, I definitely play a lot. Like I played through most of Persona 3 Reload on my Odin streamed, and loved it.
Okay. Yeah, I've jumped into GeForce now and then. And for me, the problem, part of it's the catalog. The catalog's just not quite deep enough to really justify the cost because it's expensive if you get one of the top tiers with the best resolution. And as Federico said, on iOS mobile devices, you're kind of capped out anyway. And so unless you really are going to be playing on a screen that can handle the right resolution, it's not really a great fit.
Yeah.
What is nice about the Odin is with its Wi-Fi 7, you can really get that. It's really useful to have those apps that allow you to kind of tweak those remote play settings, because you can really get a lot more power out of those apps when you have that kind of connection than you can with the default ones made by the manufacturers. We should probably have a section of the show called Controller Corner, because I have been I've been holding off.
This is a whole can of worms you're about to open. This is gonna be an infinite episode with your controllers.
We are not going to have one episode with all my controllers.
No.
It's just going to take 4 or 5 years is all for us to do one John controller every time we record until 2030. Okay, Federico? Does that work for you?
It was already so bad. And then Delta happened on iOS and created a whole new market for a different type of controller. So like it compounded your existing problem.
It did. And I've been really looking for a good vertical controller, and they don't exist.
I know. I can imagine that you have. Yes.
I've been looking every week for months now. And, you can buy your brackets that you buy on Etsy that are 3D printed.
Yeah.
They're still not great.
Okay. I have something. Okay.
Okay.
So, assuming that we're all, obviously, we know you can use a PlayStation controller, you can use an Xbox controller.
Oh, sure, yeah.
And you can go, you can go all the way, like I think Brandon and I have. You can get the fancy DualSense. What's it called? The DualSense Edge.
Right, the Edge.
If you want to use that, I've been using that on my iPad. It's excellent. So those are like the more standard controllers. Then you can get the Snap-on controllers, like the Backbone, the Razer Kishi, the new Scaf Nomad, which I guess John wants to talk about. But lately, personally, I have been looking into a specific type of controller, which is I want to use my iPhone for Delta emulation in portrait mode, specifically for DS emulation in vertical orientation. That means all these controllers where, you need to put your phone inside and use it in landscape, well, those are not good because I need to hold it in portrait. And I and other people have figured, well, it seems like a split approach is the ideal option here. And if we're talking about split controllers, where obviously the Joy-Cons come to mind, which are also compatible with iOS. Now, there are, as you mentioned, John, plenty of like Joy-Con rails that you can use to connect like a tablet, for example, to sort of hold your iPad with these two brackets that hold the Joy-Cons and the iPad together. It's kind of ridiculous, but it works. And there's one company in particular that 3D prints them on Etsy, and they make versions for all kinds of tablets, including the Microsoft Surface Pro, if you want.
And iPhones too.
And they make versions for iPhones too. A couple of weeks ago, I got from Etsy a similar but different type of accessory. These are called the Joy Clamp. So this is like, it literally clamps to your phone. There's instead of like sliding your phone inside the rail, there's this, you need to basically clamp this attachment to your phone's bezel effectively, and then you can slide the Joy-Con into the empty slot, and this allows you to hold your phone in portrait, basically clamp each of these controller parts to the left and right side of the phone. You can adjust your Delta theme or find an existing Delta theme so that the portion of like the plastic lip of the Joy Clamp, it's going to cover your screen. But if you adjust the Delta theme so that the virtual display is smaller than the iPhone's physical display. You're going to see your game and you're going to have the controller attached. And the nice thing about it is, these are pretty easy to mount because you just need to clamp the controller to the phone. And I don't know, it's just another option if you want to use the Joy-Cons.
Yeah, clamping Joy to your phone. I mean, you got to go for it. But
yeah, it's a different approach. And the other thing that I did, which I think, John, you also have, you can get from Amazon, for example, these like flush plates to basically put the Joy-Cons on the side of this like square or rectangular piece of plastic. And it's basically going to look like a Nintendo controller with nothing in the middle, right?
Right.
And then to the part in the middle, you can attach a magnet. And to that magnet, you can mount your phone thanks to MagSafe. This is also something that I've been doing, but I think I was having some instability with that approach. And I think I actually preferred the Joy Clamp to doing that.
I've got a solution for you, TG.
Okay.
So this set of plates that I got is by a company called Mania. They're the Mania Game Handle Connector compatible with Nintendo Switch. It's $16 on Amazon, so pretty inexpensive. I took the biggest one, which was necessary for the 15 Pro Max, and I connected. I had a hard time finding a battery. Not a battery. I had a hard time finding a magnet that would work because, as you said, you can get these ones that are like stickers that are very thin and they hold your phone but not super stably. And I found another one that had kind of a ring in the middle that people can use as a stand or kind of like a pop socket. And that wasn't flat enough to really stick to the plate well enough. And then I remembered that the camera company Moment, that makes accessories for iPhone camera cases, has a whole system of magnets for attaching accessories. Moment makes a very, very strong magnet that has adhesive on one side. And I just took that magnet. First thing I did, though, actually, before I stuck it to the outside, is I actually opened up this plate and tried to get it to work by mounting it on the inside and seeing if it was strong enough through the plastic. Turns out it was not. So I have it on the outside. It is probably, I don't know, maybe a centimeter tall or so. But that's kind of nice because it gives you a little bit of clearance with the phone a little closer to you and makes it a little easier to use the Joy-Con. I also ordered, I ordered a second one of these magnets. There's another version that has a ball joint on it. And I tried that with one of the smaller plates.
Oh, this is clever. I love it. Okay.
And so it sticks out further from the plate, which is good because this was a narrower plate to begin with. And if it were flush, the phone would get in the way of the controls on the Joy-Con. But because it's a little bit closer to me still, I can put the Joy-Con on that, and then I can rotate with the ball joint depending on how I'm sitting, whether I'm like sitting in a chair or lying in bed. I can kind of move that around and move the screen accordingly. Now, this particular plate is still maybe a little smaller. I think that this ball joint maybe would work better on the big plate. So I don't totally recommend it with one of these smaller plates, but it is an interesting, I guess, option if you really feel like you want to have the ability to kind of move the display independently of the actual Joy-Con by several degrees. So it's working out pretty well. I just got these earlier this week, so I haven't played with it a lot, but it's perfect for Delta.
Yeah, all of this so just that we can play Nintendogs again. So.
Exactly.
Yeah, I feel like DS is kind of the last frontier for a lot of this emulation stuff.
It really is.
The RG Cube, thankfully, it seems like is becoming everybody's favorite new Nintendo 3DS. But how much I would love to be able to comfortably be playing DS stuff. I will give a shout out to Sean Fletcher, who's a great Delta skin designer, who made an amazing one-handed skin for Nintendo DS in portrait mode that I really love and have been using a lot and enjoying. But man, I would rather be using physical controls at all times if I could be.
What have you guys been playing on Delta?
All right. I was going to say I've been playing Minish Cap
Oh,
because
nice.
that's one of
Great.
my favorite Zelda games, and it's just a great. I think it's a great way to kind of test out various control schemes and dealing with these new controller stuff I was doing. So yeah, that's mainly what I've been playing the last couple of weeks.
Yeah. I've been playing two games. The first one, I finished Golden Sun, the original,
Oh, okay.
a couple months ago on one of my handhelds, and really loved it. I had never played it before. It kind of came around on it. I didn't really love it the first time I tried it, and decided to go back and give it another shot, and really loved it. So now I'm playing Golden Sun: The Lost Age, which is the follow up to that. And the other game I've been playing on the DS specifically is Soma Bringer, which is
Oh,
a game that never got released outside of Japan. But it's by Monolith, who went on to make Xenoblade
Yeah.
Chronicles.
okay.
And it's a fantastic game. I have been really, really impressed by it. You can find an English translation kind of floating around. A bunch of fans put one together. And it works surprisingly well on Delta, even using touch controls. But it's kind of like a Diablo style. It's like if the Xenoblade Chronicles team made Diablo, which is an interesting conceit. And it plays much better with physical controls than with on-screen ones. I'll say that
I
much.
think what I'm gonna do next for emulation, I know that maybe we wanted to talk mostly about the iPhone, but I feel like I also need to mention the iPad, specifically because in regards to DS emulation, I think the fact that now Delta should
Right.
be available on iPad soon. It's available in the
Yeah.
EU. Apple rejected version 1.6, which is the version with iPad support, but due to a Patreon link that was it's a whole story, but hopefully by the time this episode is out, Delta 1.6 will be on the App Store worldwide.
Yeah.
DS emulation in Delta for iPad with the Apple Pencil, it really intrigues me as something that you can do, especially for stylus heavy games that used to be a thing back in the
Sure.
DS days. Not so much with the 3DS, but in the DS days, there were some games that really took advantage of the stylus. And to be able to do that with the Apple Pencil on an iPad, it's something that I want to try.
Yeah, that sounds great. How I want to go back to your joy clamps for a second, Federico. How exactly are they clamping onto the edge? That sounds like something that I don't know.
No,
That would be bad for the iPad.
That's the thing. You are going to cover a part of your screen. I mean, I guess on the iPad, the bezels are thick enough so that the
Yeah.
clamp basically sits on the bezel. On the
Okay.
phone, you are going to cover your screen because the
Okay.
bezel is so small on the iPhone.
Right.
But if you have a Delta theme where that part of the screen is like doesn't it's not where the game UI is shown,
Right.
that's gonna be fine, right? Because there's
Okay.
nothing else covering that part of the screen anyway. They are, I guess, mostly designed for iPads because they have thicker bezels, but you can use them with an iPhone as well. Just make sure
Okay.
that you don't have that you adjust your Delta theme accordingly so that the emulated game is also not where the clamp is.
Do you guys have a favorite third party controller that's not one of these like kind of homemade things from Etsy?
Uh, I really love the DualSense Edge. I do think of the traditional console controllers, it is the most comfortable one for me. And the quietest, which is also something that I'm always on the lookout for.
Right.
Oh,
Right.
yeah.
But how about ones that clamp onto your phone, Federico, specifically for the iPhone?
Like other ones?
Yeah, ones that actually, controllers that are telescopic that
Yeah,
you put around your phone.
for a long time, and I mean I still do. I really love the GameSir G8. That's been my go-to for a long
Yeah.
time. I modded the G8 so that the springs would extend further and support iPad connection as well. So that's been my go-to for a long time. The G8, it's excellent controller, great build quality, easy to mod, and does not make a lot of noise.
And the Backbone
I've been
one, is that
considering picking one up.
is that your go-to, the Backbone one, Brendan?
Yeah, I'm using the Backbone mainly. I have another game sir. I forget the name of it. It's a pre G8 game sir.
Okay.
That looks exactly like an Xbox controller, like an Xbox 360 controller specifically. But the Backbone has been my go-to for Delta and for Zenless Zone Zero and for game streaming and stuff. That's usually my go-to. And then outside of that, I use the 8BitDo SN30 Pro, the one that looks kind of like a Super Nintendo controller
Yep.
but has
Yeah.
dual analog sticks. I have one that I bought specifically for my iPad, just for emulation on there as well, which I am loving.
Yeah,
That
those
thing
are
is
good.
awesome.
Those are really nice controllers. I think right now one of my favorites is the Razer Ultra, which is kind of the high end one that Razer made. That it's kind of huge, but it's a lot of fun for like Zenless. I've really enjoyed playing it on that. But I can't really say that I have just one controller that I love the most because I have them all. I have the G8. I've got the X2S, also made by GameSir. That's a nice one for travel because it's boxy, so it's a little less comfortable, but it's a lot smaller, easier to carry around with you. Probably
Yeah.
similar in volume to a Backbone One, which is also kind of a nice one because it's easy to carry around with you. I've never been in love with the Razer Kishi as much. That's very much, to me, that's kind of a copy of the Backbone One. There's not a lot of differences between the two, except that I guess you can use a case with a Kishi, which is kind of their main selling point. Then there's that Scuff Nomad that Federico mentioned, which looks really interesting to me. I haven't bought it. It's a Bluetooth controller and it's just for the iPhone, which is kind of an interesting choice, I think, that you would
Yeah.
especially make something that's Bluetooth specific, but not also make it for Android. But it looks, I did see Russ's review on Retro Game Core, and it sounds like a nice controller. It's just not that. It's not different enough from anything I have to really make a difference, I don't think.
Yeah.
It's also at $100 pretty expensive. I don't
It
know.
is.
I like Scuff a lot. The stuff that they make is really impressive. If you've ever used one of their standard controllers, they're really, really, really well designed. But yeah, being Bluetooth, not having pass through charging in any way, being iPhone specific, like it's all the deck's kind of stacked against it for me. I think they almost got there with this one,
Yep.
but it feels a little bit too niche to be useful.
Yeah, agreed.
Couple of things I want to mention before
Okay.
before we wrap up. First, I impulse purchased, as you guys were talking, for 25 euros, a cartridge of Bringer on eBay Spain. So
Hell yes.
Oh, nice.
25 euros. I mean, it's pretty cheap. And the
Yeah,
guy
for
says
sure.
that it's in
Yes.
working condition, just the cartridge without the box. So we'll see. I mean, for 25 euros, that's pretty cheap. I guess I'll have to
You're gonna like it a lot.
I'll have to figure out how to rip my own DS cartridges. I think John has some guides for me.
I do.
Yeah. So it's
Yeah, it's not so bad.
And the second thing I wanted to mention in iOS and iPadOS 18, this is something that I noticed with playing Zenless Zone Zero. Game mode is coming to iOS and iPadOS 18.
Oh, true, yeah.
So this is gonna
Yeah.
boost games performance while reducing background activity and also reducing latency for AirPods and other connected Bluetooth accessories. Like if you have non-AirPods earbuds, I guess. I haven't really seen any meaningful improvements yet, but
Your phone gets really hot. I can tell
Yeah.
you that.
Yeah.
Zenless Zone Zero, it gets nice and toasty.
phone gets really hot and it prioritizes
Sure does.
performance. And sure enough, every game that you install from the App Store, as soon as you launch it, game mode activates. So
Right.
it seems like it's pretty automatic thing. There's nothing else you need to configure. I guess we'll need
Yeah,
to
that's
see.
the way it is on the Mac too.
Yeah. So that's nice. And the other thing that I wanted to mention is also there's Game Porting Toolkit 2 this year, which in addition to helping developers bring their Windows games to macOS, now it also integrates, I believe, with iOS and iPadOS. So there's been obviously what's on the Mac side, John, the name of the Game Porting Toolkit utility that also Nilean was using, for example, to run
Oh.
Is it whiskey?
Whiskey. Yes.
Yeah, that's
so
it.
that's
Yeah, I've been using whiskey
Yeah.
a lot recently. It's amazing.
Yeah, and I think Apple actually gave a shout out to Whiskey and other similar tools
They did.
in their WW.
That's how I found it, yeah.
It's been really cool to see the progress on that front. But yeah, otherwise I'm mostly just using the iPhone and iPad for Delta, which is the best thing ever.
Yes,
And
same here.
yeah, hopefully the iPad version
give
will
a
be out soon.
I'll give a quick shout out to a YouTuber, Matt Horton, who just put out a really good video specifically about Mac gaming and iOS gaming specifically, and was shouting out Game Porting Toolkit and Whiskey as
Nice.
a solve there.
Cool.
It's a good video.
I should take a closer look at that. I haven't really played with Whiskey at all.
Yeah, I think the thing for me, so I have a Mac Studio, which is great. Obviously, it's pretty powerful. I think it has the M2 Ultra in it, and like, you know, I can run most stuff very well through Whiskey. Just I think through brute force, which is pretty cool.
Right.
But I've been using it mainly for like kind of smaller indie titles that just require mouse and keyboard, because the idea of setting up my Steam Deck and moving all that stuff over on Bluetooth and docking it just like, it's a little bit messy for me.
Yeah.
So now that I can get this stuff running like pseudo natively on my Mac, it's really kind of opened up a whole new avenue for me that I didn't even realize was possible.
Oh, that's great. That's great. All right, guys.
Wow, is that going to do
I
it?
think that's going to do it. You can find us online. Brendan, you are at wavelengths.online. That's your blog. You're writing over there. You're also on Into the Aether, a low-key video game podcast, which is a wonderful show that just put out a 15-plus hour episode. You want to tell people a little bit about that in case they're interested?
Absolutely. Yeah, we hit 1 million downloads a couple months ago, earlier this year, and spent the past couple months working on a follow-up to an episode we did in 2019 that was called Games of the Decade, where we talked about our 100 favorite games from the years 2010 to 2019. We did a follow-up to that, best games from the years 2000 and 2009. Raw audio clocked in at like 19 hours, and edited down ended up being 15, 55, 51, which is a nice palindromic number.
Yeah.
But yeah, that just came out. One person, at least at the time of this recording, one confirmed finish
Wow.
on that, which is remarkable. We have like a little code word that we told people to send us if they finish the episode, and one person has done that so far. So
Very
yeah,
nice.
hey, if you can make it through that one, go for it. And I think the week that this episode comes out, if I'm not mistaken, is when our season premiere actually comes out.
Indeed.
We're talking about the whole GameCube library as well. So you can head over to intothecast.online if you want to listen to either of those episodes.
Now imagine if the show wasn't low-key. How long they could go.
Yeah.
It would be-
Now imagine if it was a high-pressure podcast. What they could do.
Definitely.
Yeah. Sometimes when trying to upload a 16-hour MP3 file to your podcast host, it feels high pressure. Definitely. Very, very high key experience.
Yeah, I think you created some technical issues for yourself there for sure. I mean, there aren't too many.
We found the limits of WAV files, which I didn't even realize. A WAV file can only be 4 gigabytes maximum.
Yeah. Wow. That's amazing. That's amazing. Well, you could also find Brendan online. Just search for Brendan Bigley wherever you go for your social networks. You can find me and Federico over at macstories.net. We also host other podcasts like App Stories on Mac Stories and Mac Stories Unwind. And both of us are on the social media. Federico is at Viticci. That's VITICCI. And I'm at John Voorhees, JOHNVOORHWS. Talk to you guys later.
Bye.
Thanks for listening, everybody. Bye-bye.